The prairie lay wide and endless under the slow climb of the sun, its light spilling gold over the grass and weathered fences. A boy balanced on a splintered rail, his boots worn thin, watching a lone rider crest a ridge. The man rode easy, reins loose, the horse breathing clouds into the cool morning air. Dust clung to his coat, and his shadow stretched long across the field. When he reached the yard, the boy jumped down, grinning as a man swung from the saddle with a weary grace. Inside the small clapboard house, the scent of baking bread filled the air. His mother stood by the stove, sleeves rolled, hair pulled back. She gave her husband a look that was half relief, half reproach for being late. He brushed her cheek with a callous hand, kissed the crown of the boy's head, and hung his hat by the door. The three of them shared breakfast at the scar table, coffee steaming, crust breaking beneath their fingers. The father spoke little, but his presence carried a quiet assurance. The boy watched the way his parents moved around each other, a rhythm worn smooth by years, and felt the simple safety of it. After the meal, the father led the boy out behind the barn. The wind carried the scent of hay and distant rain. He set up tin cans along a fence post, the metal glinting sharp in the morning light. The father placed a small revolver in his son's hands, guiding his grip until the barrel steadied. Each shot rang out into the open air, echoing off the hills. The boy missed more than he hit, but when it can spun from the post, he grinned despite himself. His father's approving nod was worth more than the shot itself. By late afternoon, they rode into town for supplies. The general store's bell chimed as they stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of tobacco and dust. Men murmured low near the back, their words sharp with unease. The boy caught fragments, railroad towns, robberies, men dead where they stood. The Black Spurs. The name lingered in the air like a dark rumor. At the counter, his father kept his voice steady, but the muscles in his jaw worked slow and tight. On their way out, the boy noticed a man standing under the awning across the street. Tall, still as a fence post, his face shadowed beneath a broad black hat. The brim hid his eyes, but the boy felt the weight of a gaze fixed on them. His father's hand came down firm on his shoulder, steering him toward the wagon without a word. The image of that silent figure stayed with the boy all the way home. Evening fell heavy. Clouds rolled in, bruising the sky purple and gray. The wind picked up, bending the grass and rattling the loose boards of the barn. Inside, his mother lit a lamp, its glow soft against the gloom. The boy sat at the table, tracing knots in the wood, while his father cleaned the rifle in the corner. The air felt charged, as if the house itself was holding its breath. The sound came first as a low tremor, hoofbeats, distant but growing. The father's head lifted, eyes narrowing. The hoofbeats swelled into a thunder that filled the ground beneath their feet. Then came the shouting. Torches flared outside the window, throwing jagged shadows across the walls. The father moved fast, shoving the rifle into his hands before striding toward the door. Gunfire cracked through the night. The boy's mother grabbed him, pulling him down low. The smell of smoke poured in, acrid and thick. The front door burst open in a spray of splinters, a man's silhouette framed by firelight. His father fired, once, twice, before a shot struck him square in the chest. He staggered, mouth opening in a soundless breath, and went down hard. The mother screamed toward the air. She pushed the boy toward the back, but rough hands seized him, yanking him from her grasp. The world tilted, spun, shouts, boots pounding, the roar of flames consuming wood. Someone struck him hard across the head, and the light went out. When he woke, the sun was rising. The cold bit deep, the grass stiff with frost. Smoke still curled from the blackened bones of the house. He stumbled toward the shapes on the ground, his legs buckling when he reached them. His father's hand lay open, palm up, as if reaching for something he could not grasp. His mother's eyes were closed, her face still streaked with soot. The boy knelt between them, the ache in his chest spreading until it filled him whole. No sound came, only the rasp of his breath and the whisper of wind over the empty plain. Somewhere out there, the men who had done this still rode free. He looked toward the road, a long ribbon of dirt stretching to the horizon. His hand found the revolver his father had given him, the metal cold against the skin. He stood slowly, the house behind him nothing but ashes. The sun climbed higher, casting his shadow far ahead. Without looking back, he started down the road, the faint smell of smoke following like a ghost. The days bled into weeks, and the boy walked until his legs trembled and his boots began to split at the seams. Hunger gnawed at him until he forgot what it meant to feel full. Each night, he found shelter beneath whatever trees or rock outcroppings he could find, the revolver always resting in his palm, the memory of the flame still bright behind his eyes. One cold morning, with frost clinging to grass, he collapsed beside a shallow stream. He had not the strength to drink. A shadow fell over him. A gruff voice spoke, not unkindly. "You dead or just playing at it?" The boy forced his eyes open to see a man crouching beside him. Gray in the beard, the brim of his hat frayed, a long coat patched in more places than it was whole. His gaze was sharp, assessing. The man offered a tin cup of water. The boy drank until the metal tasted warm. The drifter didn't ask questions at first. He led the boy to a small camp tucked against the side of a bluff. A single horse grazed nearby, and the smell of beans simmering over a fire filled the cold air. Only after the boy had eaten did the man speak again. "Name's Eli. You're running from something, I reckon." The boy's reply was quiet but steady. "I'm not running. I'm hunting." He told Eli only what mattered, that his parents were dead, that a gang called the Black Spurs had done it, and that he meant to find them all. Eli listened without interrupting, though his eyes narrowed slightly at the name. "Revenge," Eli said at last, stirring the pot slowly. "It's a long road. Might be longer than you think. You want to walk it, you'll need to know how to keep your feet." From that day forward, Eli began to teach. The lessons were harsh and constant. He showed the boy how to ride until the horse moved as if it were an extension of his own body, how to draw and fire before an opponent could breathe between heartbeats, how to track a man by the broken grass beneath his boots and the faint scuff of dust along a trail. Days stretched into months. The boy's aim sharpened under the weight of repetition, tin cans and tree knots falling with each precise shot. Eli drilled him until his hands knew the shape and balance of the revolver without his eyes. At night, they sat by the fire while Eli spoke of the unspoken rules that kept a gunman alive. Never face the sun in a duel, never trust a smiling stranger, never waste bullets on warning shots. The boy's first true test came in a border town where the streets baked under a cruel summer sun. A drunk, bloated from whiskey, shoved him hard outside the saloon. Words turned sharp, then dangerous. The drunk's hand went for his belt, and the boy's revolver was out before the thought had finished forming. The shot hit clean, dropping the man in a cloud of dust. The echo lingered longer than the man's breath. That night, the boy couldn't sleep. The image of the man crumpling replayed each time he closed his eyes. Eli sat across the fire, watching. "It gets easier," he said quietly, "but it shouldn't get easy." Word of the boy's speed began to travel. Folks called him the quiet hand, for he never boasted and spoke little. But when the draw came, it was over before most could blink. Sometimes he took work riding shotgun for stagecoaches. Other times he helped ranchers deal with rustlers. Every scrap of coin went toward his travels, every mile bringing him closer to the names he hunted. In a gambling hall on the edge of the territory, a man mentioned seeing the Black Spurs near the border. Scattered now, some hiding in mining camps, others running cattle for cover. One name stood out. A tall rider with a black hat, known for killing a man before finishing his drink. The boy knew it was the same figure who had watched from across the street that day. The trail grew hotter. In dusty towns, he found whispers of their movements. He learned to read the signs of a hunted man. How fear hidden away a stranger kept his back to a wall. How guilt clung to a face even in forced laughter. More than once, he walked into a saloon and felt the air shift, knew he was being measured in the same way he measured others. One evening, rain began to fall hard, slicking the streets into mirrors. The boy stood under the overhang of a livery, the water dripping off the brim of his hat. In his hand was a crumpled wanted poster, the ink running until the features were only a shadow of a man. He stared at it until the paper sagged in the rain. Eli came up beside him, silent for a moment. "You find him, you better be ready to finish it. Men like that, they don't give second chances." The boy didn't answer. He folded the poster, tucked it away, and stepped into the downpour, the street stretching ahead into the wet darkness. Somewhere out there, the man in the black hat was still breathing, and until that changed, the road was not yet done. The first of the black spurs fell in a mining camp, where the hills rang with the sound of picks striking stone. The boy, now grown into a lean, hard-eyed man, rode in at dusk, the sky the color of a dying ember. He found his quarry in a shack behind the main drag, a man with a scar running from his ear to his jaw. The air inside smelled of sweat and lamp oil. No words were traded. The man's hand went for his revolver, and the quiet hand was faster. The shot cracked, echoing between the hills. By the time the echo faded, the scarred man lay face down, and the hunter was already in the saddle, riding out before the miners had time to gather. The road south was long and treacherous. Twice he caught the glint of rifle barrels in the rocks above and felt bullets bite into the dirt near his boots. Ambushes became a constant shadow. In a narrow canyon, 3 riders came at him fast, their faces hidden behind bandanas. He spurred his horse into the riverbed, water splashing high, and drew while riding hard. 2 dropped into the current, the third breaking off into the scrub. The smell of gunpowder clung to him long after the river spray had dried. Each kill weighed differently. Some were quick and almost clean, others drawn out and ugly. One night, tracking a spur to a half-collapsed barn, he found not a hardened outlaw, but a boy barely older than he'd been when it all began. The kid's hand shook so bad he could hardly hold his pistol. The man in him wanted to end it. The memory of himself as a frightened child made him lower his gun. "Get out," he told the boy, voice low. "You're not built for this road." The boy ran without looking back, boots splashing in the mud. That mercy cost him. Days later, the same boy's tracks led him straight into a trap. 3 men waiting behind a fence line, rifles ready. He barely made it out, a bullet grazing his arm, the heat of the shot burning through his sleeve. Pain sharpened his focus. He swore there would be no more second chances for the Black Spurs. Information came in scraps. Traders speaking over whiskey, dying men whispering for a chance at last words. Piece by piece, the picture formed. The gang was splintered, but not broken. 3 remained, holed up in a border town where the law was nothing more than a paid gun in a tin star. At the center of it all was a man in the black hat, untouched by the years, still moving with the quiet menace of someone who knew his name carried weight. The hunter's journey took him through storms and sun-scorched flats. Nights by the fire grew colder, the flames smaller as his coin dwindled. His horse grew lean, ribs showing, but never faltered. There were moments, brief, almost dangerous, when he wondered if the road itself had become more familiar than the idea of vengeance. But then a memory would surface. The smell of burning wood, the way his father's hand had gone still in the dirt. The road was never about comfort. By the time he reached the ridge overlooking the border town, the sky had begun to melt into orange and red. From up there, the place looked quiet, but quiet towns were often the loudest in gunfire. He could see the glow of lamplight spilling onto the streets, the shadow of a saloon sign swaying in the breeze. Somewhere down there, the last of the Black Spurs were drinking, laughing, and breathing the air they'd stolen from his parents. He dismounted, checked the cylinder of his revolver, and spun it once, the click sharp in the evening stillness. His breath came slow, steady. Below, the town waited, unaware that its night was about to change. He pulled his hat low, the brim cutting the last light from his eyes, and started down the slope toward the glow. The hunt was almost over, but the blood it would spill had only just begun. Dawn found Main Street empty, its dust unsettled, the air still holding the cool weight of night. The quiet hand rode in slow, the sound of his horse's hooves echoing between shuttered buildings. Faces peeked from cracked windows, then vanished. The town knew trouble when it smelled it, and this morning the scent was thick. The first man to meet him wore a badge. The sheriff stepped out from the boardwalk, boots planted wide, thumb hooked in his belt. His smile was thin, and the gleam in his eyes held no law, only profit. "You're far from home," he said. The hunter didn't slow. The sheriff's hand twitched toward his holster. One shot rang out, sharp as breaking glass, and the badge-bearer crumpled into the dust before his fingers even found the grip. Somewhere, a dog barked once and fell silent. The saloon doors creaked open, spilling the smell of whiskey and stale smoke into the street. 2 men stepped out, black Spurs, their spurs jangling with each step. One carried a shotgun, the other a pistol hanging loose at his side. The hunter moved before they spoke. His revolver barked twice. The shotgun man folded. The other dropped his pistol and fell clutching his chest. The street grew quieter still, the town's heart beating in the hush. He crossed the distance of the saloon, pushed through the doors, and stepped into a room where the air seemed heavier, darker. Lanterns burned low, their light bending around shadows. At the far end, a man sat alone at a table, one boot propped on a chair, hat brim casting his face in darkness. A glass of whiskey sat untouched before him. The man in the black hat didn't move when the hunter approached. "Been expecting you," he said, voice low, smooth as worn leather. "You've taken a lot from me. Man, coin time. But you ain't Takeem, my breath." "You took theirs," the hunter replied, his voice flat, his hand never straying far from his gun. The black hat's grin was a pale cut in the shadows. "Your daddy died begging. Your mama fought harder. I'll give you this. You've got more spine than he did." Silence filled the space between them, thick enough to choke on. Outside, the wind rattled a loose shutter. The hunter's fingers flexed once. The black hat's eyes narrowed. For a heartbeat, neither breathed. Then both moved. 2 flashes, 2 cracks. Pain burned along the hunter's side, but the black hat's chair tipped back, the man's chest opening red. His glass toppled, spilling whiskey across the floorboards, the smell mixing with the copper tang of blood. The black hat's hat rolled from his head, coming to rest at the hunter's boots. The hunter stood still, the weight of the moment pressing down. He reloaded with slow, deliberate movements, the scrape of metal loud in the stillness. He glanced once at the body, then turned and stepped back into the daylight. The street had emptied entirely. No eyes in windows, no sound but the wind carrying dust down the road. He holstered his revolver, mounted his horse, and let the reins fall loose in his hands. The town shrank behind him with each step, swallowed by the open land. The horizon stretched ahead, endless and pale. He rode toward it without haste, dust trailing behind him like a long, fading shadow. The road no longer felt heavy with vengeance, only with the quiet knowledge that nothing it had taken would ever be returned. Somewhere inside, the boy he had been was gone, replaced by the man the road had made. The wind whispered over prairie, carrying no judgment, only the truth that the ride never ends, only the rider does.